In this video, we are going to talk about top 10 tips to ask for a raise at work. So before starting this video, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for our future updates. If you're like a lot of people, you've been asking for a raise, or maybe you've never asked. Surprisingly, given how much money most of us appreciate, a ton of people never asked for a higher salary because they feel awkward about starting the conversation, or they're worried about sounding greedy or entitled, or they're just not sure how to ask for a raise. But asking for a raise is a very normal part of having a job, and if you avoid doing it out of discomfort, you may give up a large amount of money, just to avoid a conversation that could be as short as 5 minutes. So, here's all you need to know about asking for a raise, and I hope you'll use this as your blueprint to get more money soon. When to ask a raise. Number 1. First, know that it's normal to ask. It's not greedy to ask for a raise. If your manager is even a bit reasonable or has any previous experience managing people, she knows it's normal for people to ask for a raise. She's unlikely to think, "What an outrageous request," or, "How gauche, Jane's obviously just for the money." Unless you work really dysfunctional, it's understood you're working for money. That's okay. Even if your manager ultimately doesn't say yes, you're not likely to damage your relationship by making the request, as long as you don't ask for a quantity that's wildly out of sync with your job market, and b. you have a track record of strong work. You are unlikely to fall out of favor simply because you requested your compensation. Think of it this way. A raise is recognition that you are contributing higher than when your salary was last set. A raise isn't a favor or a gift. It's a way for employers to pay fair market value for your work and keep you around. Otherwise, you'll eventually want to find another job that will pay you competitively. Number 2. Be emotionally smart about timing. To request this raise, you'll approach your manager, and your manager is a human with normal human emotions. That means you shouldn't ask to talk about your salary when she's particularly harried or having a bad day or nervous about imminent budget cuts. On the other hand, if you've just saved the day for a high-profile project with a major client or garnered rave reviews, or if your boss seemed particularly pleased with you lately, now might be a particularly good time to make the request. Number 3. If you've done great work for a year since your salary was last set, it might be time to ask. Some companies revisit your salary on their own, often linked to performance reviews. But many won't bring it up on their own, so you'll need to figure out when to broach it yourself. Generally speaking, if it's been a year or more since your salary was last set, and if you've done great work during that time, it's reasonable to ask to review your pay now. But if your salary has already increased in the last 12 months, expecting another one before a year is up is generally unrealistic and is likely to be out of touch. The same is true if you haven't been working for a year. There may be some exceptions to this, like if the job turned out to be wildly different from what was discussed when you were hired, or if your boss suddenly asks you to travel 75% of the time when you signed up for a small travel role. But for most people, expect to wait a year from the last time your salary was set to be reassessed. And of course, this is part of excellent work. If you've made a lot of mistakes or your boss hasn't seemed happy with your work, it's unlikely that a request for a raise will go well, and you risk seemingly not evaluating your own performance accurately. Number 4. Increase factor and budget cycles, if necessary. If you work for a company that generally raises once a year, be careful when that normally happens. In some companies, it may be around your start date anniversary. Others might simultaneously assess everyone's salary, like every December, often linked to the fiscal year and budget process of your employer. When that happens, plan to start the conversation with your boss at least a month or two before that formal process begins. If you wait until decisions on raises are made, it may be too late for her to make changes. Pre-meeting. How to prepare. Number 5. Know your work and start researching online. If you don't know what the market rate is for your work, and especially in your geographic area, as there may be wide variations by region, find that out before you ask for more money. If it turns out you're already at the top of the market, you'd want to make that into your thinking about what's reasonable, and if it turns out you're underpaid, that's also useful information. For your work, figuring the market rate isn't always straightforward. Salary websites aren't always accurate at individual level, because the same job title can mean very different things from business to business. They can be a useful starting point, but don't treat them as the last word. Instead, they'll give you a very rough range. Number 6. Talk to colleagues, former colleagues and acquaintances, and ask questions carefully. Often, you can get surprisingly good data by talking to people in your field. Most people don't like being asked, "What do you earn?" But if you ask, "What would you expect a job like X to pay in a company like Y?" You can also try to talk to recruiters and see if any professional organizations in your field keep wage data. Many do. Number 7. In your company's salary structure. Once you have a good idea of your work rate, also factor in your understanding of your employer's salary structure. Some employers adhere to rigid policies on how much pay increases anyone can get at one time, or rarely give anyone a 5% increase. Others were known to be more generous. Knowing how your company generally handles increases so you know what's likely to be possible. Your employer's salary structure. If you find out in the course of doing this research that men in your office earn more than women for the same job, you have a different issue on your hands, one that moves us out of the normal, how to ask for advice, and into how to address a gender pay gap territory that you can read about here. That's also a good reason to be sure you get men's and women's data during the session. Number 8. What to ask for a raise. People often think they need to present in detail why they deserve more money, but most of the time your request can be fairly brief. You want to touch on why you think you've earned a raise, i.e., your responsibilities and/or the level of your contributions have increased, but you don't need to walk in with a PowerPoint and note pages. Something like this is mostly enough. I really appreciate your opportunities for greater responsibilities, like X and Y over the past year. I've had great results in those areas and exceeded the goals we've set. Could we talk about adjusting my salary to reflect that higher contribution? I hope we can talk about my salary. It's been a year since my last raise, and since then I've assumed some new responsibilities. I'm managing all our copywriters and was even able to smooth out that long-running issue with the design team, which has saved us a ton of time in recent months. I think things are going well, and I'd like to talk about raising my salary to reflect this new job. If you have a specific dollar figure in mind, naming it is fine, as in, I hope we can raise my salary to $X. But it's also okay not to start with a specific figure, though you should be prepared to ask what you're hoping for. One tip. If you know your boss will need someone above her to approve your raise, like her own manager or HR, you can make it easier for her to do that by leaving her with a short, bulleted list of key points in her favor. Keep this short, though, no more than 1 page, with some quick bullets highlighting your most important new responsibilities or accomplishments. If you have compelling wage data, you could include that too. Number 9. Keep your work accomplished focused, not your finances. You may be asking for a raise because your rent went up or you want to save more for retirement, but your boss shouldn't be part of your case. Your case should stick to business reasons, your contributions and your value to your employer. Number 10. Know what to say about no or maybe. If your boss doesn't give you a firm yes and instead says she'll think or get back to you, that's fine. Many managers on the spot won't say yes. But if you get maybe, make sure you're clear about next steps. Something like, could I plan to check back with you when we meet on the 20th? Alternatively, if your boss is generally good at things, you might just go with a simple, thanks. I appreciate it. ND if the answer is no, all is not lost. This is a perfect opportunity to ask, can you tell me what you think it would take for me to earn a raise in the future? A decent manager should be able to explain to you what you'd need to do to earn more, which could be anything from manage your work more autonomously, to stop alienating all your coworkers, to you're at the top of the range for your position, so you'd have to be promoted to earn more money here. You can then assess whether you're able and willing to follow the path your manager lays out, or whether a realistic path exists at all. And if your manager isn't able to give you specifics about how you can earn a raise in the future, that's a useful signal that if you want more money, you may need to leave in order to get it somewhere else. What do you think about our list? What more tips you want to share? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications before you go. Thanks for watching.